Hey everyone. A pretty universal question that I get asked quite a bit is how does one actually play Space Station 14? Which is, it's a fair question. So today I thought I'd just go through how you actually go and find Space Station. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is go to Steam on your store, and you're going to want to find Space Station 14 in your, Steam search bar. And you're going to want to click this little button right here. This will install the playtest. You'll get immediate access to it. Don't worry about it. There's been like a million keys given out. Just click the button and you're in. Then you're going to want to do the process of obviously installing the whole thing. Pretty obvious. And from there, what you're going to do is you're going to boot up the server browser. This is what's referred to as the hub. Now, the hub is where you can find all of the Space Station 14 servers. There are servers that are not on the hub, but as a new player, and even as a veteran myself, I don't really care about the servers. They're mostly not on the hub for a good reason. Now, you're going to see all of these different servers, all with different things, and, whatever. You're going to see like random things like Space Station 14 server, and you're going to see a bunch of named servers. So, which server should you join for your first time? I have 2 recommendations and 2 warnings. A couple warnings, actually. First of all, I would recommend any of the Wizard's Den servers, including Wizard's Den Lizard and Wizard's Den Leviathan. These are as close as you can get to a truly vanilla experience on Space Station 14. So, I'd recommend logging onto them for your first time. But if they're full, or if you want to log on to a different server, I'd recommend Starlight. Starlight has a bunch of, unique things, including TTS, but as a new player, you're going to be interested in the mentor system. I'll explain the mentor system once we get into game. Now, first of all, you're going to notice these MRP, this vanilla roleplay rule set. What does any of this actually mean? Essentially, there are 3 roleplay levels, LRP being low roleplay, medium roleplay being medium roleplay, or MRP, and HRP being high roleplay. As of right now, there are no publicly accessible high roleplay servers, at least in the English language, that I can see. And I would recommend avoiding servers that are MRP, with the exception of Starlight, due to the mentor system that I'm talking about. Now, what does this actually mean? You might think that this is, MRP means medium roleplay, but in reality it's more on a sliding scale from almost no roleplay to you are not a person playing a video game anymore. And this can change drastically depending on the server. For example, Starlight is much lower of a medium roleplay server than Salamander or Delta are. And as for servers that I'd recommend you avoid for your first time, I'd recommend avoiding Rooney's Marine Corps and avoiding Frontier Monder and Frontier Hypatia down here. Not because these servers are bad. These servers are both great. The problem is, though, they're meant for experienced players. RMC is a very difficult game mode where you need to have mastery of the combat systems, and despite being on a team, you're probably going to get left in the dust by the more experienced players. Frontier has a similar issue where no one's on a team with each other, and everyone is their own independent contractor, and it's generally expected that you know a little bit about what you're doing. As for servers that I'd caution against, I would caution against any of the Goob Station servers, not because they're bad servers, but because they're just super chaotic. Wizard's Den and Starlight are both chaotic in their own right, don't get me wrong, But Goob Station is on a whole nother level. And with that, let's connect to Starlight, and I'm going to show you how you can actually join the game and start having fun. Just click that connect button, you'll do a bunch of bullshit, and here we go! Starlight, Space Station 14. Once you're at the server, you're going to be greeted with a few things. You're going to be greeted most likely with the rules list. I've already logged in, so the rules list has been displayed for me already, and I'd recommend you read them. Seriously, read the rules of the server that you play on, because violating these can easily get you banned. Give them at least a bit of a skim, and if you're not sure about something, A-help it. To A-help something, simply press F1 and type into the box. To actually join the route, you're going to click on Customize. And here you can see all your different characters. I have Ajax Vanellas, Peach Anger, the Desert of Awakening, and Security. Now, you can do whatever you want customization-wise, and Starlight even has TTS, so you can customize your voice. I play with it off, but you can do whatever you may choose. As for species, this does matter. For example, the Voxes are a difficult species to play as toxic as nitrogen is oxygen is toxic to them, and nitrogen isn't. They have to have their very basic air systems on at all times. Every race has unique features. For example, slime people have their own internal storage. Moth people can fly around when there's no gravity. Reptilians can pull things with their tail. Humans are very basic and generally in line. Felinoids are also limited by a game mechanic, and Cyclorites are a lot slower. I'd recommend playing as a human, dwarf, or a slime for your first time on Space Station. A human being the gold standard. As such, we're going to go with a human. You can customize all of your other things here. What that does matter is cryosleep versus arrivals. Essentially, when a round hasn't started yet, you will spawn in where your job's position is if you hit the ready button. If it isn't, you'll spawn in at either arrivals or cryosleep, depending on what you set. Arrivals will have a shuttle transferring it to you, and as such, we're going to go with arrivals for this very first example. Once you're done customizing and setting your own name, and remember, have a basic, normal name, click save, and we're done. Until we get to the job section. The job section is how you choose what you want to spawn as. If you like the full experience to know what every job is, I have a video on that. I'll link it in the description. But for now, we're going to spawn in as a passenger down here at the P. We're going to set that to high, and we're going to click save. You can also customize your loadouts for different things, which will give you more and more unlocks. For example, I'm able to spawn as a passenger with a mantle, a special jumpsuit, and a winter coat, special gloves, shoes, and trinkets and all that other stuff. This is because I've played on the server for a good while. Once you're done here, click save once more, and then click close. Now, this button up here will either be join, as it is right now because the route is in progress, or it will be ready up. Readying up ensures that you'll spawn in the game as your selected job in the selected job spawn point. But for now, we're going to click join, scroll all the way down to find passenger, click it, and we're in. This is Arrivals. Arrivals is a pretty basic place where you are existing before you head to the station proper. And I must make this very clear. Do not do any antagonistic activity on the Arrival shuttle. That will get you banned. As for actual controls, WASD is to move, obviously. Walk can be toggled or or untoggled, depending on what you prefer, and you can walk with shift. Walking slows your speed down, resulting in you not slipping on things. Not that you care. As for the camera, you can rotate your camera with 7 and 9, zoom it in with 6, zoom it out with 4, but I'd recommend pressing 8 on your numpad, as this will center your camera to the north. This will make it helpful if you need to ask anyone for, say, directions, the location of a threat, or anything similar. And now, we're going to talk about your backpack and your inventory. Clicking this little icon down here will give you a readout of what you're wearing. You have the glasses slot, hat slot, radio slot, gloves, armor, mask, shoulders, body, and shoes. What we're going to do is we're going to right-click to pull up the context menu. Important detail, you can right-click anything, other players, to click on examine. This will give you a description of whatever the item is. For example, I want to know what this winter robe is. It's the best place to enjoy the cold. It's powered, it's anchored to the floor, and the maintenance panel is closed. That doesn't mean much to you, but for an engineer, that will be quite a bit. But what we're going to do for the passenger side, in our little clothes down here, yours will be gray, but mine is rainbow. We're going to click sensor, we're going to come down here and make sure the coordinates option is selected. If you click vitals or anything else, this will be off. Now, why do we do that? This is because the other crew have a crew monitor. A crew monitor is a very important tool that allows people to see where you are at pretty much any time, along with your health state. This allows people to heal you if you get, killed by something, or injured, or whatever have you. Medical's job is to keep you alive, so turn this on every shift to make sure this works. Next up, we're going to go over our inventory. This down here is your main bar. Down here is your PDA, which contains your ID. This gives you access to everything on the station, and IDs can be changed at the hops, but that doesn't mean much to you right now. Important thing to remember, if for any reason you take off your clothes, it will also drop any items in your pocket slots, PDA slots, and you'll be completely naked and without coordinates. So put your suit back on, and slide your PDA back into the PDA slot down here, not the belt slot. This causes you to not be viewable. And now, I have spawned in as an antagonist. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm not going to do any antagonistic activity, but if you are an antagonist, you can press C to see your objectives. As you can see, my objectives are to steal the head of security's energy shotgun and to make it out alive and unrestrained. There are code words and an uplink code, which doesn't matter to you right now. Pressing E on your backpack will open it. This is where you can store items. For example, I want to pick up these brown shoes. I can click it and put it in my backpack. It uses a grid system, and some items are storage slots within items. For example, if I hit E on the survivor box, I have several useful tools to keep me alive. An oxygen tank canister, a breath mask, a metapen, a flare, and some water and food. This will be helpful in an emergency situation. Now, let's go over actually picking up items and using them. We're going to go back into the controls menu, and we're going to set some basic controls. Firstly, mouse left should be your option to use things. For example, if I want to use this station map, I click on it, and now I can see a readout of the whole station and the map, including where I am right now, marked down here. Use secondary is this context menu that I'm referring to before, which will allow us to do things related to it, including things that are close to it. Activate item in hand is self-explanatory. For example, I have a, rainbow jumpsuit in my hand. I pick it up and I press Z. It will go into my clothing slot. Activate item in world can be bound. I recommend being bound to Alt Z. This will cause alternative things to happen with certain items. For example, Z normally turns this on, but Alt Z instead does nothing. This is because this is almost never used, and you can mostly ignore it. Activate Item World is self-explanatory. You press E, you use the item. Pretty simple. Works for this too as thing here as well. Alternative Activate Item World is extraordinarily rare in usage, but some items have multiple uses. I'd recommend trying to figure that out on your own. Dropping items is Q, and swap hands, which is a very important thing, is with X. As you can see down here, I press X, it swaps the active hand. For example, I am holding a oxygen canister. I want to pick up these shoes, but I can't because I'm holding this in my right hand. Swap hands, pick up the shoes. Also, you can move any window around just like, any other game, something like that. Examine will not be bound for you. I'd recommend binding it to any mouse button. For example, I have it bound to mouse 5, which allows me to pop up the inspection menu quickly and easily. I'd recommend doing this so you don't have to go through this entire process whenever you want to figure out what something is. There are smart interactions here, but you don't really need to pay attention to them. Now, the final thing before we get into actual gameplay and having fun is Starlight's unique system of the mentor help. Up here, this question mark with the triangle sign, you click it, and you will have a very different menu for this. And you can type pretty much any question in, and a mentor, like me or several other admins and mentors, will have this pop up. For example, I Did Know asks, how do the powers work as a vamp? And Hawktua claims the ticket and gave them an explanation. With that, let's get into basic survival. In order to breathe in an oxygen-less environment, or nitrogen-less if you're a slime, you want to take this out, take your breath mask, press Z to equip it to here, then take your oxygen tank, you can hold it in your hand, or put it in your pocket, and then you're going to want to click this icon right here. This tells you if your internal system is on. You click this, your internals are on, this is now being consumed slowly but surely, and I'm now breathing in an environment without oxygen. Right now, the place I'm in currently has oxygen. As such, we don't need to worry about it too much. But if your character ever starts gasping, and a pop-up of O2 appears here, that will mean you're in an unoxygenated environment and need to equip internals. As for the other two icons, this is your stamina. Security officers and other items will hit you and deplete your stamina. Run out of stamina, you get stunned. You don't really need to worry about it too much, but it's helpful to know. The one above it matters a lot. This is your health. Essentially, most species, with the exception of a couple and a couple antagonists, will enter critical condition at taking 100 health of damage. You could see how bad you are with green good, red bad. Self-explanatory, isn't it? If this ever goes to something besides good, I'd recommend visiting the medical bay. Now, where's the medical bay? Well, here, we're going to use these special little signs. This sign says medical, that-a-way, and indeed, medical, that-a-way. Food, evacuation, and science are also findable here, where you can show that there are in fact science here, which is a department, mind you. And if we go up, all the way up here, as this is a waste station, that's an important detail as well. Maps change. Every map is different, some big, some large, some small. But there are a couple locations I'd recommend you figure out on every map. And you can use this little thing here to find them, as they're all marked. Medical is a very important spot that you might end up visiting if you get injured. I'd also recommend finding the bar and the kitchen, as these will help you acquire drinks, not both the alcoholic and non-alcoholic kind, and food, which is incredibly useful because you need to eat. And if you don't eat, you'll start slowing down and taking damage over time, along with drinking. Now, let's say something attacks you. You want to enable harm mode to fight back. Every entity needs to enable harm mode before they can start doing damage to things. For example, I walk up to this guy, I click on him, I just hug him. However, let's say I wanted to punch him, what I would do is I would enable hard mode by pressing 1. This causes this reticle to appear on my mouse, and for me to start punching things. I can punch this tree, for example. I can punch this glass, even. Pressing 1 again will disable harm mode. I'd recommend getting used to this concept of having separate states for harm and unharm, as this will likely be the most confusing thing to you as a new player, and combat entirely relies on harm mode being on or off. For example, harm mode, punch a butterfly. Now, several items in the game have damage numbers. This means that this will deal 12 units of blunt. Now, most items in the game have 2 attack modes. Direct, which requires you to click directly on the thing you want to attack, and wide swing. Wide swing will cause you to damage items in a fan in front of you. Now, the first item you're going to likely want to find on any station is a crowbar. Luckily, this is a tool room. And in here, we can find this U-tool contains a crowbar. We're going to take this crowbar and put it in our backpack for later purpose, as this can be used for prying. Prying, I'll explain in a moment. However, if you can't find them in the tool room, or if you can't find the tool room, emergency toolboxes often contain crowbars along with other useful survival gear, and most kinds of toolboxes contain crowbars as well. Crowbars are a very useful tool. I'd recommend getting used to finding them. That is a dog. I need to run. As you can see, even despite the fact that it's very early in the shift, we already have a dog attacking people. This is because Space Station is very dangerous. Now, if you ever find yourself under attack by anything, the first thing you should do is run. Once you run, attempt to find something in a populated area. For example, there are many players around here, and if I get attacked, most likely said players will make an attempt to assist me. Unless they're the one attacking you. But who knows? Now, what does prying a door do? Now, these are fire locks. These are the short kind. And to pry a firelock open, click on it with your crowbar. This also applies to unpowered doors. These doors are all powered, but if for some reason power ever goes out, or the firelocks, like for example, the ones on this door, ever become closed and need to be reopened, you can do that by using a crowbar. Now, important detail. Firelocks are meant to contain spacing and other oxygen problems to locations for Abos and other engineers to fix them. Breaching the firelocks is a choice that you'll have to make on your own. Sometimes it's necessary to get to a place through the firelocks. Sometimes you're running from something. Either way, you need to run sometimes, and that's how you get through those firelocks and unpowered doors. Now, sub doors like these ones you have access to. Other doors you do not have access to. As you can see, the captain is angry at the fact that I'm trying to enter the bridge. Avoid entering areas you don't have access to unless invited in by someone. Otherwise, they'll get a little, ugh. And with that, we have one final thing to talk about. The chat system. By pressing T, you can talk and say words. This is referring to as local chat. And if you press tab, At any time, you can swap to other chats. Whisper. The hell? Whisper is a much shorter range, and people in a range outside of the whisper radius won't be able to hear what you're saying. Useful if you want to talk in secret to someone. From here, we have the emote tab. The emote tab allows you to emote what your character's doing. It's mostly used for roleplay purposes. The next one is the radio. The radio is how you talk to the entire station. There are several radio channels, most of them with some sort of, asterisk to them. For example, hitting :V is how you access the service channel. However, because my radio only has an encryption key for common, I'm only able to talk on and hear common radio. If you're part of, say, the security department, you'll have access to security radios. However, certain roles, like the captain, for example, they have access to the entire station's communications. And the last channel is LOOC. LOOC is local out of character. This is essentially a thing that you could use to ask questions to anyone outside of your character, because you need to follow the roleplay guidelines. For example, we can have an entire conversation about glue without it affecting the round because we're talking in out-of-character chat. And with that, you should have everything you need to know in order to get around and have fun on Space Station. Remember, this is a chat game. It's a role-playing game, and the most powerful tool at your disposal is your words. Run around, experiment, and generally try to be cooperative towards your fellow crew, even if some of them are trying to kill you. And with that, outro. Thank you to Phil Bentimo, Weapons Warder, for my maples. Saplings are Pepper, and seedlings are Albarabius, Slotard, and Sathier Lapid. Remember, you can join the channel too at any time by clicking the link below. You get some free stuff and some useful perks of pretty good value, I'd say. I don't know. Outro. Bye. Lol.